Hello guys and welcome back. In today's video we are going to learn how to host websites on Vercel, and Vercel is an online hosting platform that provides us with infrastructure to host our code online, and it also generates a custom subdomain for us that we can share with anyone to visit our website online. So let's get straight into Vercel's documentation. So you can head over to vercel.com. You can search it online on Google, and this is what their landing page looks like. You can see your complete platform for the web. Vercel provides the developer tools and cloud infrastructure to build, scale, and secure a faster, more personalized web. So Vercel actually helps in hosting website. They are very good at it, and their companies are great. The CEO, the CTO, the vice president of Vercel, all of them are very active on social media, so you can always follow them to see the new updates that are coming on Vercel and how the ecosystem is. So what we want to do here is we want to go to the docs over here. So you can see there is a doc option at the top of the nav bar, so you can click, and once you've clicked, you now come to deployments. So we have a lot of things here, a lot of features that they provide, but what we are interested in first is deployment. So you can just click on deployments like this. I'm also going to be attaching the link in the video description so that you can access it much quicker. So deploying to Vercel provides us with 4 different ways of hosting on Vercel. The first one is Git, and the second one is Vercel CLI. We have the deploy hooks, we have the Vercel REST API. So don't think in terms of like which one is better. It just depends on like which one works for you. So they just provide ways in which you can deploy, so that depends on your own use cases. So all these options, just have to evaluate what is your own use case and which one are you more confident with. So we are going to be taking a look at the Git and Vercel CLI, which I feel like is very useful. Most likely you can decide which one you want. For Git, I mostly use Git or Vercel CLI. So the two of them are just like the top tier for beginners or getting things done quickly. Deploy hooks are for specific use cases, and Vercel REST API if you want to like deploy using their API for some reason, so you can make use of that as well. So let's take a look at what deploying with Git looks like. So I click on Git, you can see on the same page, in this section now we have the Git option, and for the Git option now, the option that we have is like the most common way to create a deployment on Vercel is through pushing code to Git repositories. So, and since we're already familiar with Git and GitHub in our previous videos, this should be a breeze for you after setting up your Vercel account. And this is like the most common way of working with Git repositories. So once you already have a GitHub repository, so you can just connect that GitHub repository to Vercel, and then whenever you push to it, is going to deploy straight, and then you can share the URL with your customers or user depending on your own use case. So creating an automatic deployment begins by importing a Git repository on Vercel, which we are going to be demonstrating shortly. So this repository can either be private or public. To set up a GitHub repository, click on new project button from the Vercel dashboard. So these are all steps in which you can follow, and the reason I'm showing you the documentation is because maybe later in the future the UI changes or things change in the process, so you can always come to the documentation and then get the latest update. So you can make use of the Git option using GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. And in our previous video I've already said like GitHub is not the only Git online platform to work with Git. You can make use of GitLab or Bitbucket. So if you are using either of these 3 or more, you can definitely make use of Vercel for deployment as well. So you need a repository. It can be private or public, you can still deploy it. So definitely you already know how to create a repository, so that part is already checked in our list. So reading further now, it said deploying your application using Vercel's Git integrations gives you simplified collaboration through pull request or merge requests. So we've already talked about creating pull request or merge request. So what this means is like whenever you make a pull request or merge request, Vercel creates a preview URL for that particular pull request. So you can have a URL that you can preview how a particular pull request or how a particular commit looks like before you push it to production. So these are called preview URLs, and you can also have multiple URLs for each of your commit or pull request or even a branch. So the ability to test new features and changes using preview deployment. So like I said, you are going to have a dedicated URL for previewing a particular commit or branch or pull request before merging into main. So you want to see how it looks like a staging. You want to see how it looks like before you now move it to production deployment. So, and it also has the ability to receive live feedback in preview environment with the comments feature. So they have a feature where you can comment on the preview website so that other developers can be able to see it, give feedback to your colleagues, and then work on it immediately as well. So that's basically it. So with all the steps that are here, we'll just go ahead and start working on it. So the first thing we need to do is to come here and create a new folder to test for the Git option and also for the CLI option. So, and I'm also assuming that you already have your Vercel account from previous classes. So I'm just going to do Vercel Git option. So this is just to demonstrate how you can make use of the Git option for hosting on Vercel. So I'm going to open this in a new window terminal like this. And then with this now, we can now go ahead and open this in a VS Code like this. So with this VS Code now, I can create a new index.html file, bring out my boilerplate, and then I can do an HY of Vercel deployment using Git option. So this is basically what we are just going to add. We don't need to display this in the go live. Just assume that this is your project. So, and then we can go back to the terminal. So on this terminal now, what we just want to do is do git init. You already know why I'm doing this, because I want to push it to GitHub, and then I'm going to do git add, do git commit, give it a message of init set of index.html like this. So this now, we've already initialized Git on our project, which I believe like you already have on your own project as well. So we can now go back to browser and then visit GitHub. So on GitHub now, if you go to github.com/new, or you click on the new repository button on your repositories page, be able to get to this page. We've already covered this in the last video. So I'm just going to come here and then name it the same name that I have locally, Vercel Git option like this. Then I can make this public or private, and that's the only thing I need to do. So I'm just going to click on create repository. So with this now, the only thing I need here is to copy the git remote add origin and the repository git URL like this, and I'm going to head back to my terminal, and on the terminal now I can paste this and click enter, and then I can do git remote -v, and then I can see that it is connected. So what I just need to do here is push this to GitHub. So I can do git push origin main like this. So once I've pushed, I can go back to my GitHub, and on the GitHub repository now, if I refresh, you can see now that we have the index.html and our repository has been updated. So the next thing we need to do now is to head over to our Vercel dashboard. So I can come here and do Vercel dashboard. And on the Vercel dashboard now, you can see that I have a couple of things running here. So what you are seeing here are the projects that I have previously. So these are all projects, these are all repositories that I have already worked on. And over here, you can see the recent previews. So these are deployments that has happened previously. And you can see this one failed. All these green ones are successful. So Vercel is going to let you know the status of each of the deployment, whether they are successful or not, like this. So to now start a new project on Vercel for our project, so what we need to do is to come here and click on add new and go to projects like this. And over here now, if your Git is not connected already, it's going to ask you to connect it here. So once you click on the connect, it's going to redirect you to connect your GitHub repository with Vercel, and then you'll be able to see all your projects here, or your repository will be able to see them here, or then you can search or select a different organization if you have multiple, but then your account is going to be default. So like for me now, I have different organization like TideLab, Ashnode, Bit for SDG Core 2, but then I'm going to use my personal account. So this is what we want to host. You can see this was pushed 3 minutes ago, and this is what we want to work with. So I'm just going to click on import like this. So this page now is where we can configure our deployment. So project name, you can leave it as a default name. That is the same name that was picked on repository. You can leave this as it is. So every other settings, actually, you can just leave them as it is. Don't move anything, don't add anything, just leave it as it is, and then we can click on deploy like this. So this is going to redirect us to the deployment page. You can see the process, and this should be pretty fast because we don't have much thing going on. So you can see now that we have Vercel deployment using Git option, which is coming from our HTML. So this is like an OJ image, a display of how our website looks like. So from here now, you can go ahead to the dashboard by clicking the continue to dashboard over here. And on the project dashboard now, you can still see that we still have the preview like this. We have deployment. So this is a preview URL. This is the domain. So this is the one that you can share with anyone, and then they'll be able to visit the website. So it's also going to tell you the source, the branch main, and the commits that actually deployed this particular preview. So for each of the commits that you are pushing to GitHub, they are going to have a preview URL, and then it's going to let you know that this was the commit that triggers this deployment, and it was from this branch. So this is very, very useful in case you want to go back to previous review to know what page looks like for a particular commit. So that's basically it. And then if you are working in a team, you will know the person that makes the deployment as well, and the status reads ready. If it is a failure, you are going to see failed here. So that's basically it. And now you can go ahead and click on this domain URL or click on visit. So if you click on visit now, it's going to redirect you to the hosted version. You can see now Vercel deployment using Git. So our website is now online. So you can visit this, and you can also share it with other people. So with this now, one thing you can also do is that you can go to the settings here and go to the domain. So if you come to domain here, you are going to see the URL of your website. So you can come here now and update this to whatever you want. So you can come here, change this to Uncle Big B, and click on save, so you know whether it is available or not. So unclebigbee.vercel.app is available. So if you go to the previous one and refresh, that one is not going to work again because you've already changed it. So with this one now, you can now click on this, and then the URL has been updated, and this will be the new one that will be working. So be careful when you're also changing the URL, because you might be using it somewhere else before. So before you even start sharing your domain URL, ensure that you already updated it to the one that you want. So I'm just going to change this back to what it was previously, which was Vercel Git option like this. I'm just going to click on save, and then this unclebigbee.vercel will not work anymore, but this will start working now. So you can see how this is working very, very fast. You don't have to wait a couple of minutes before it works again. So this is to demonstrate how fast and easy Vercel is to work with. So that's basically it. And with this now, our website is ready. So the next thing we want to do is to update our website. So we've already deployed it successfully, and then we need to update some things. You know, when you view the website and then maybe you want to make an update and you want to push. So how do we do this? So let's go back to our VS Code. So, and on our VS Code now, we can come here and do H2 and just make updates. So we can do this is an update. So just to demonstrate that we've updated our code. So let's go back to our terminal. So on our terminal now, we can come here and do git status and do git add, git commit, and then I can do show update content in index.html. So with this now, I just need to do git push origin main and then click on enter. So we're just going to wait for this now. So after this has finished pushing, we can then go back to our Vercel dashboard. And on our Vercel dashboard now, you can head to deployments. So this is where you are going to be seeing all the deployments. So you can see that we have a new one just now. So this is the new one that we just pushed, and you can see update content in index.html, which is our commit message. This now, if you come here and refresh, you'll be able to see our updates here. So this is how easy it is to work with Vercel. You can see how easy it is to connect our Git repository with Vercel and also how to update it. So this is basically where we are going to be keeping track of all of the deployments that we are making. And now another thing I would like to show you is how do you work with branches. So for now, we only have one branch for main, and what if we have another branch? We've already discussed that it is not actually a good practice to work directly from the main branch, because that is the single source of truth to the customer. So we don't want to be experimenting on the main branch. So let's go back to our terminal now. So on our terminal, what we want to do is we want to create a new branch. So I'm going to clear my terminal. So we can do git checkout branch some make new update. So I'll just give it a random branch name. On this branch now, what I want to do is I want to make a new update. So I'm going to do code dot to open my VS Code, and then I'm going to do this is the latest changes to this website. So I'm going to click on save now. And the next thing I want to do is go back to my terminal. So on my terminal, I'm going to do git add, git commit, and do sure add new content to index.html. So I'm going to click enter. So with this now, I'll push to GitHub and then open a pull request. So I'll do git push origin and then the name of the branch, and then I'm going to push. And once this is done, you can say create a pull request for this branch on GitHub by visiting this. So from here now, I can go to the GitHub repository or even go to Vercel and see what happened. So if I go to Vercel, you can see now that we have a new deployment for this branch as well, and then it provides us with a preview URL. You can see that we have production here. This is also production, but this has preview because this is not the default branch. So the default branch is the production branch. So that's why we don't want to work directly on it. Preview are just experimental branches that we experiment things, and once they are okay, we push it to main. So with this now, we can check what we have here. So if I click on these 3 horizontal dots, I can promote to production, which means I can move this to production, but then you still have to go and merge the changes to main on your GitHub. So you don't want to put them out of sync. So it is always advisable, until you know what you are doing, to always use the pull request method, what I'm going to be showing you shortly. And if something fails, you can redeploy. You can inspect deployment, you can view the source, copy the URL to share with other. You can assign a domain to it if you want, or click on visit. So we are interested in visit. So I click on this now, and then you are going to see the changes that we made. So you can see now that I can even comment here. So if I'm working on a team, I can tell them that this should be bold, and then I can click on enter, and anyone on my team will be able to see these and reply. They can also add attachments to it, and then we can have a conversation here instead of having to take a screenshot and then share with them on Discord or WhatsApp. We can just have the conversation going on for this particular deployment. So you can see this is auto-generated subdomain that we can use for this particular preview. So I can close this one since it doesn't work anymore. So this is production. So if I refresh, you can see that we don't have the update here yet. So we are only previewing the experimental. So if I refresh this one now, you can see that we have the latest. So you can see that I have one chart here. So this should be bold, and if it is done, you can click on resolve, and that's resolved. So this is how useful Vercel is when you are working in team. You can chat directly on the deployment and all like that, and it allows you to isolate each commit or branches from the production so that you can test out, does this actually look good? So you can imagine if you want to test something online, how it's going to look, and you don't want to push it to production, you can just make use of the preview URL like this and test it, and if it looks good, then you can push it to the production. So to push to production now, you can come here and click on promote to production. You should only do this when you know what you are doing, because when you do this, it's going to push to production, but then you have to go to GitHub and then open a pull request. So let me show you how you can do this. So when you go to GitHub now, you can see that GitHub is telling us that we have some recent changes to this branch, and do we want to compare with main and then make a pull request. So I'm going to click on pull request, or I can come to pull requests and click on new pull requests, and I can say I want to compare the SAM make new update with the base. So base means like the default that you want to compare with, where you want to push it to. So you can see where the arrow is pointing. So I want to push the changes here to this branch. So that's basically it. And then you can see the changes that we have here, and I can click on create pull request here if I'm satisfied, and you can still see the changes here to be sure of what you are opening, and then click on create pull request button here. So with the create pull request now, you can come to file changes, see what you have. You can even leave comment for anyone. You can see this looks good to me, and then click on add single comment, and anyone on your team can see it. Or go back to conversations, and in conversations now we can scroll down and see match pull requests. So with this now, just click on match pull requests and confirm the match. And if you go to Vercel, you are going to see a new deployment coming here shortly. So you can see now that we have the main request here. So the main branch has come in and it has deployed. So this is very, very fast. You can see 4 seconds because we only have few changes and the code base is not even large. So the deployment can even take up to like 1 minute, 2 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, 17 minutes, depending on how big your code base is. So but trust me, Vercel is very, very fast. So with this now, if you go to our production, so this is our production. So if we refresh now, we should see the changes here. So anytime you match one branch to another, Vercel is going to create a deployment for you. And anytime you match to main or your default branch that you've set, that's when the production is going to be triggered, and then the changes are going to reflect. So you can view environment productions. You can see these are the deployment for production in case you want to inspect what has changed or what is causing a particular bug, and you can check for previews. We only have one previews. You can also check for a particular branch. Let me refresh so that we can see other branches. So if I cancel this, so you can see that we have 2 branches. So if I want to see all the deployment for this particular branch, I can filter that out. And if I want to see all environment for it, I can check. And for main as well, I can filter. So you can also filter by date range and stuff like that. So these are just to help you know your way around how Vercel works. So Vercel also has analytics. So I'm not actually like pitching Vercel to you because I feel like it's becoming like I'm pitching Vercel. But then Vercel is very, very good. I use it for all my projects actually, and I use it at work too. So I'm just telling you like things that you can do if you want to enable web analytics. Let's say you want to know how many users are visiting your page and how many page views. You can just enable this and follow the guides as well, but there's a limit, but then the limit should be good for you. So it's just for you to be able to know how to test it out for now. So that's basically it. So now that we are able to like demonstrate the Git option of hosting website on Vercel, so now let's go over to the CLI version. So the second and the last option that we are going to be taking a look is this Vercel CLI, and Vercel CLI stands for Vercel Command Line Interface, which allows us to deploy projects directly from the command line interface, which is like our terminal. So you can use this deployment method whether your project is connected to GitHub repository or not. So if you don't want to make use of the Git repository, or you don't want to push your code to GitHub or GitLab before you deploy it, so you can make use of the Vercel CLI. So for a new project, first deploy, we ask to link your local repository to the Vercel project. So what this means is like when you run Vercel, Vercel is going to connect your local project to the Vercel. It's just like you pushing your project to Vercel instead of pushing it to repository. So for the Git option, so the repository is a single source of truth for Vercel to pick up the latest one. Or for Vercel CLI, your local interaction will be the source of truth for it. So this is done by running the Vercel command in your local project directory. So before we start doing this, we are going to check out how we can set up the Vercel CLI on our machine. So still on the doc now, we go to Vercel CLI, so docs/CLI, So you can see the CLI here, and then you can click on Vercel CLI, and then you'll be on this page. So this is going to be a guide for us to install our Vercel CLI. So we are making use of PNPM. So if you have the latest NPM version, you can make use of this. If you are making use of Yarn, you can make use of this. And if you are making use of npm, which is like the default for your node, so you can make use of npm install -g, which means global, and install Vercel. So what we need to do is go to our terminal now, and on our terminal we can do pnpm. You can make use of npm, you can make use of yarn. So I'm going to be making use of pnpm install -d, which stands for global, and then I'm going to do Vercel. So I'm just going to click on enter and then wait for it to install. So with this now, this has installed, and what I can do next is I can do Vercel login. So Vercel login means like you want to authorize your terminal to have access to your Vercel. So once you click on enter, it's going to ask you, do you want to log in with GitHub, with GitLab, with Bitbucket, email, or single sign-on. And you can also see this option when you visit the Vercel login. So you can see you can actually log in on their dashboard using all of these options. So that's the same way you can log in on your terminal. So any option that you select is going to redirect you to your browser, and then you can authenticate it there, and then you can connect it. So that's basically it. So ensure that you run Vercel login and then authenticate terminal using the option that you've been using. If you are using email, you pick the email option. If you are using GitHub, you can pick the GitHub option as well. But I am already authenticated on my system, so I'm going to click on cancel. And with this now, let's go back to the documentation and see what next. So on the documentation now, you can see that for a new project, the first deploy, we ask to link your local directory to the Vercel project, and this is done by running Vercel command in your local project directory. So what we just need is we need to create our project to demo this. So I'm going to head over to my desktop to create a new folder. So over here now, I'm going to create a new folder, and then I'm going to name it as Vercel CLI option. So I'm going to click on enter, then I'm going to open this on my terminal and open this on new window. So with this, I can open this on my VS Code like this and create an index.html, and then I can bring out my boilerplate. I can do h1 Vercel deployment using the CLI option like this. So this is going to be our first content, and going back to our terminal now, we can now run Vercel like this. So Vercel is going to ask you set up and deploy. You can see now that this is the path to our project. So I'm just going to click on enter, or I'm going to type Y, and then I'm going to click on enter like this. So we have which scope do you want to deploy to. So I have different scope. Scope also stands for organization or teams. So I have my personal one and I have my work one. So just pick the one that you want. So I'm going to stick with my personal one because I don't want to deploy to my office scope. So I'm going to click on working tech, and then is asking me to link to existing project. So I don't want to link to existing project, and the default is N. So you can see this is capital. So I can click on N, or I can just click on enter. And it's now asking me what's your project name, and the default one will be the name of the folder. So you can see Vercel CLI option, and this is the default. So I'm just going to stick with the default one. I'll click on enter, and it's also asking me in which directory is your code located. So my code is located at the index root, so I'm just going to click on enter. So this default is going to work. So just allow it to do some checks. So you can see no framework detected. So assuming you are making use of maybe like React or any framework, is also going to detect it, and then going to ask you want to modify these settings. So if you know what you are doing, you can modify. But if you just want to deploy your normal HTML project with even JavaScript, and it doesn't require you to change the installation command, you can just click on enter, and that will be a no. So just wait for it to deploy. So we have the production URL, we have the inspect. You can see now that this has finished deploying. So this is deployed. So what we can do is we can actually copy this URL over here and visit it, because this is our production URL, or we go to Vercel dashboard and see what we've done. So if I go to my dashboard now and visit this URL like this, you can see that this is opening and we can see our changes in the production. So this is our production now, and then our website has been deployed successfully. So if we go back to our Vercel dashboard and head to our index route over here, so for our projects, so you can see that we have the Vercel CLI option over here, and it's also showing us connect Git repository, and the Vercel Git option doesn't show connect Git repository because we've already connected our repository to it. So the difference between these two options is, for Git option, we are making use of our GitHub repository as the source of truth where it gets the latest changes. Or for the CLI, the source of truth is whatever we are pushing from our local and deploying to Vercel. So you can connect your Git repository, it will still continue working. So you can push from the CLI or make use of the Git option. So that's basically it. And with this now, we can open it and see our project overview. You can still see connect Git here, and you can see we have our domain here. So this is our production domain. So if you click on this now, it's still going to show us Vercel deployment using CLI option. And our URL is this, and our production preview URL for the particular push that we did is this. So for every push, you will have two URL. You will have the preview, and then you have the domain itself, like this is our production itself. So with this now, we can go ahead and make updates and see how we can update this. So let's just put this in our deployments. So we've only done one deployment so far. You can see Vercel deploy. So instead of the branch, the other one shows branch, but this one shows us the Vercel deploy. So you can view the code because we are pushing the code to Vercel. So you can see now that we have it here. So instead of having it on the repository, we have it here directly. So what we can do next is we can go back to our deployments like this, and then let's make updates to our production. So I can close this. So let's go back to our terminal. So on our terminal now, we can open our VS Code. So let's make an update. You can do H2 and do this is an update to the website using CLI. So I've saved and I can go back to my terminal, and then I don't need to run any git command. You know, we are now tracking this using git, so I can do Vercel directly and then click on enter. So this is going to load for a couple of minutes, and then it will inform us once it's done. So it is done now. So we can go back to our Vercel dashboard. So on our Vercel dashboard now, you can see that we have new change just now by me. So you can see like this. But then this is not in production yet. So this is going to be in the preview by default. And this was pushed to production because it was the first one. So the second one, we always go to the preview first so that you check what you want to preview. You know, instead of you making use of different branches like for the Git or open a pull request. So this is just like a pull request. So this is a pull request, and then we can promote to production. So this is not going to be a need for us to merge the changes that we have in Git because we don't even have Git by default. So you can just promote this to production. But before then, let's see the changes by clicking on the visit. So clicking on visit now is going to load the page, and then you can see that we have this is an update to the website using CLI. So you can also comment here as well. So you can comment here, this looks good to me. So and then anybody on your team are going to be able to view this. And if you come to production and refresh, you can see that we don't have the changes in production, but then we have it on the preview. So with this now, we can head over to our Vercel dashboard and we can promote this to production. So it's just going to ask you a new deployment will be built using your production environment. So we have the preview environment and we have the production environment like we discussed earlier. So we want to move from the preview environment to the production environment. So we can click promote to production. So we'll just wait for it to finish loading. Then this is building, so wait for it to be ready. So it is ready now, so we can refresh this. Our production has been updated. Another way we can just push to production directly without having to like come here and do promote to production is when we make changes in our local, we can add a prod flag on our Vercel command, and then it's going to push to production directly. So let's go back to our VS Code to demonstrate this. So on our VS Code, we can create a p tag and say this is the latest changes for this website. So we can hit save and go back to our terminal. So on our terminal here, so instead of doing only Vercel, we are going to add a dash prod. So this is going to create a production deployment. Ordinary Vercel is going to create a preview deployment, but adding the prod tag is going to create a production deployment. So if you click on enter now, this is going to push to production directly, so that we don't have to promote to production when we get to our Vercel dashboard. So let's wait for this to deploy. So this is done now. We can now go back to our Vercel dashboard, and on our Vercel dashboard now, you can see that we now have a production build, which is now the current just now. So the changes that we made. So if I refresh now, you can see now that our production now have the latest changes for this particular website. So that's basically how to work with Vercel. You can see that everything is straightforward. Using the git method is straightforward. Using the CLI method is also straightforward. So Vercel has done a very good job to make deployment easy for us. You can see that we have a very good user interface, and then we can click on a couple of buttons and our deployments are done. If I go back to my projects, so you can see on my projects here, I have the Vercel option. So if I open this on a new tab and I open the CLI option on a new tab as well. So let me close these two. And now for the Git one now, if you check the deployments, let's see the difference in the logs. And if you come to CLI and check deployments, let's also see the difference. So if I come here for the Git, we have main, which is the name of the branch, and then we have the commit ID and the commit message. You can see the commit message and commit ID here. And for the CLI, we only have view code. So this view code is the source of the deployment, while the branch is the source of the deployment. And then these are commit messages. So we don't have commit messages for Vercel deployment. We only have like this is deploy from Vercel deploy. So if you click on it, it will take you to Vercel CLI documentation, and then you can rebuild deployments for sure. If something fails, you can redeploy, you can promote anyone to production. So let's say for instance now, this was the one that was in production before, and we want to promote it to production, and these changes should not be in production. We can just click on promote to production like this, and if you come here to projects, visit, you can see now that we don't have the latest changes anymore. So you can actually promote any deployment that you've made to production at any point in time, but then you should be very careful so that you don't want to promote old or outdated version of your code to production. But it is possible. So if there's any bug in the previous one, you can revert it. You can see instant rollback. So if I click on instant rollback now, what this is telling us is like it's going to remove this one and go back to the previous one which we deployed 3 minutes ago. So this allows us to have control over any issues. Maybe the production, we push something to production and there's an issue, so we can instantly roll back to the save or previous version and then resolve this later on in our code or GitHub. So if I click on continue now and also continue again, so over here now you can see that we don't have the latest changes. So let's wait for Vercel to be done. So click on done, and then we can come back to deployments. So you can see this current, but this was the previous one that we did. So that is why it is at the top, and you can see that the color has changed. So this is the current one because we rolled back to it. So if you refresh now, you can see now that we have the latest changes. So this is very helpful in case like we push something back to production and then we need to roll back. So Vercel has done a good job using that. And you can also do a lot of things on Vercel. You can come to settings, change your domain names like I said for Git. So you can come here, see change the domain name as you want, and then you can see your Git connection here if you want to disconnect, if you want to set some options, if you want to change the default branch, you can also do it from the settings page. Maybe you want to change the default one to prod, but ensure that the branch name exists. So that's basically it. And if you want to delete your project, you can come to general and then come to delete project, but be sure that you know what you are doing, because once you've deleted it, it is not visible. And for any reason, if you need to transfer your project to another Vercel account, you can also transfer it. So you can go over to Vercel and also test it out and see what you can do with Vercel. So if you have any question, you can let me know in the comment section, and if you need help, you can also let me know on WhatsApp or on Discord. I'm happy to help you out or even jump on a call to fix any issue that you might be having. So that will be all for this video. Go ahead and test this out with Domain projects. You can create test projects like I've done to test out the workflow and the usage. So there's also an assignment attached to this video. You can check the LMS for the assignment. So these are questions to just ensure that you understand what you've learned from the video. So that's basically it for this video. So see you in the next video. Bye bye.